Hi, welcome back to the channel. As a recruiter for 20 something years now, I've dealt with literally thousands of people that have been offered jobs either via myself, via colleagues, or via competing recruiters, and I'm talking to them about those offers as well. And one of the things that's always been a factor, still in 2025, is counter offers. You've been through days, weeks, maybe even months of interviews. You've sat down with your current employer, you've handed in your notice. And maybe it was unexpected, maybe it was expected, they've presented you with a counter offer. I'm not really going to tell you whether or not you should take it or not, but what I am going to talk about is 4 things you need to think about if you do take that counter. Some negative things that can happen, perhaps under the surface, if you accept that deal that is on the table, because they can have big effects on your medium and long-term future with that employer if you stay put. So again, I'm not telling you what to do. Take the counter if it seems like a great deal. Don't take it if it doesn't. Take that job you've been offered elsewhere. But these are 4 really critical things that you need to consider if you take that counter offer in 2025. Also, make sure you like this video if you find it useful and subscribe to the channel for more career hints and tips and LinkedIn hints and tips as well. Right, let's get started. I've broken this down into the 4 P's, and the first one I want to talk about is perception. And I'm particularly thinking about the perception of you from your employer's point of view if you accept that counter offer. You would have sat down to resign and no doubt talked about the reasons you're looking to leave and perhaps the reasons that this other opportunity you've got are fantastic and great in comparison. Think about that from a different perspective. If you were walking into a room to talk about your pets or your children or your partners, and someone said, well, you know, I've got the best dog here, or my child's the cleverest, or my partner's the best looking, and you said, well, actually, I disagree with that for these reasons, and then carefully listed reasons, well, your dog, your child, your partner was better. Even if they then say, well, I think I can change your mind, and you say, yeah, okay, maybe you have changed my mind, they're still going to find a bit of resentment about the fact that you'd assembled this whole case of information as to why this alternative is better than what they've got. People are bound to take counter offers personally because of what the process is, what you're going through. So whether that be your line manager, or perhaps even worse, your manager's manager, their perception of you on some subtle emotional level changes. You're the type of person that had criticisms about the job, about the business, about the organization, about their management perhaps, and you went out and you did something about that. Now what have they done? They've maybe offered you some alternatives or some changes. Perhaps they can or can't carry those out. They've probably offered you more money. And so you've said, okay, I'll forget about those issues. The money thing's an interesting one as well. You might be the sort of person that has always said, I'm here for the love of my customers, for the job, for the product, for the business. But now, when more money's been put on the table, you've changed your tune a little bit. That will also change an employer's perception of you. Rightly or wrongly, you've taken the money. You've taken the king's shilling, as an expression I might use here in the UK, and people will start to think, well, you just stayed for the cash. That might be not true in any way, shape or form, but it is a perception that will be created when you accept a counteroffer, unless there's no extra money included, which is pretty rare, to be fair. So perception is something you need to think about if you accept a counteroffer. Can you cope with the fact that people will think differently about you, whether that be your manager, your manager's manager, or other operational leaders as well? If that doesn't sit right with you, you need to think about it, even if it's a good counteroffer, because it is a fact of life. P number 2, it's progression. So you've made a counteroffer. Maybe it comes with some promotion or some career development. Maybe it doesn't, but something is offered in the future. Maybe that wasn't a factor and so it's not mentioned. But accepting a counteroffer absolutely 100% limits your progression within that employer. Let me give you an example as to why. A manager or manageress has 2 people in their team. They need to promote somebody. The one person has been with the company for a few years, no sign of them leaving, they're good at their job, they could take this promotion. The other person is you. You've been at the company for a few years, you're good at your job, but fairly recently you did look to leave the business and you made some criticisms. Perhaps they were valid. In fact, if they were valid, it's even worse, and you've now stayed. But you could be suitable for that promotion. That hurdle, that barrier that you thought about leaving, you were so far committed to leaving, you took an offer somewhere else and then had to be tempted back, maybe with a bit more money, makes you a flight risk. So when it comes to putting people into senior positions, they're going to look for stability and reliability. And countless times over the last 20 years of being a recruiter, I've seen people that have accepted counteroffers be overlooked for promotions because the assumption is that is still a temporary state for you. Now, the reality is everyone has an employment tenure. Most people within technology, where I've spent a lot of my career, maybe spend anything from 5 to 8 years in a company before they look to move on anyway, unless there's a significant organizational change, an acquisition, something like that. So really everyone's going to move on at some point, but employers, team leaders, managers don't really want to think about it like that. So everyone is part of their team and is settled unless they raise their head and start to say, well, actually, I'm looking elsewhere. And then you become a flight risk. So your promotions and your progression within that employer that you've accepted the counteroffer with are definitely limited by you taking a counteroffer. Number 3 in the 4 Ps you need to consider when accepting a counteroffer is politics. Now, we talked about how management feel and perception downwards. Politics here, I'm thinking about within people of your level or perhaps below within the business, in your team and department and in others. The fact that you've tried to resign and then been made a counteroffer will no doubt be kept a secret within that organisation, which means everyone will know about it within about 24 hours. And there will be a cultural shift around you. I've seen it with people external. I've even seen it in businesses that I've been in. People will deal with you differently because they know that you took the money to stay put and are now probably paid more than they are, which translates in a lot of people's minds as you're paid more than you're worth. And they'll start to think, well, maybe I should look at that as well. Maybe I need to have a conversation with HR. Maybe I need to have a conversation with management and say, is the only reason they're being paid that money because they look to leave? Because if I look to leave, would I get the same money? So should I be doing that as well? And if they don't get it, which can invariably be the situation because some people aren't great at presenting that kind of case, and so it creates ripples and waves in the team, it can create negativity that washes back onto you. People that were formerly your work friends, work colleagues, friends, can all of a sudden turn away as they think, hang on a minute, I'm not being treated fairly because of this person and the comparison to their situation. What about if you're offered promotion? What about if you're offered the opportunity to set something up, run a project or something that otherwise didn't seem to be coming your way? You've only got that because you chucked your toys out the pram and said, that's it, I'm off, I quit. Well, okay, you can have whatever you want. Fine, I'll stay. That isn't a great look. You have to be prepared for this. If you stay put, the dynamic between you and your colleagues will not be the same. It never is. Even if those people, you've spoken to them as part of your process of finding another job. You've shared, your frustrations and your concerns. You've cried on each other's shoulders. You've bled on each other. You've fought together. You're in the trenches. You're all as one, but you've won and they're still where they were. So believe me, you have to be prepared for that. Now, if you're taking that counteroffer and it's the right thing for you, it's the right thing for your family, it's the right thing for your career, despite its potential to limit your progression, but it's the right thing right now, then maybe you can offset that. And you can say, do you know what? The change in friendships in the workplace doesn't matter. It'll settle down over time. And maybe it will. But you have to justify it and think about it yourself first and say, can I cope with that? Because if you can't, it is something to think about. You have gone so far in a journey to leaving a business, leaving a role and starting somewhere else. It is bound to leave a footprint on relationships. The last P in my 4 Ps that you need to consider if accepting a counteroffer in 2025, probably the most important one: personal. How does accepting that counteroffer make you feel? I've viewed this from the outside with people a lot, and once personally I've done it as well, and I'll talk about that in a minute. My view of it that is, it's a roller coaster. You are coming into resigning to a business on a high. You've been offered a job that you fought for, scrapped for through the interview process. You've got what you wanted. It's presumably a great opportunity. That's why you've got that offer, and you're going and resigning. You're then nervous about resigning. Mostly 99 people out of 100, don't look forward to that. If you hate your company, hate your boss, and you want to throw it in their face, brilliant. You look forward to it going with a smile. But most people don't like that. So you're just on that downward crest. You get into that meeting, you're feeling the pressure of upsetting them and disrupting those relationships you've had in the work environment. And then they say, but we love you, but you're so important to us, but we were just about to offer you a pay rise. Of course you were. And so all of a sudden you're on an upward again. You leave that meeting, or maybe a following meeting, and you've got 2 offers now. You've got a counter offer. Your current employer's telling you how critical you are, how important you are to them. This is the highest point of the roller coaster. So you take that counter offer, you let down the other business, maybe a little dip there if people get frustrated with time wasted, but you feel on top of the world. What happens next is a return to work. It's a bit like returning to work after Christmas. You're right up here, and then you're just coming in and it's just the same as usual. Yes, your payslip might look different in 4 weeks' time or whatever, 2 weeks' time. Maybe there'll be some changes coming in over the next few weeks and months. But basically, you go back to the same office, or you sit in the same chair, you answer the same emails, you do the same thing. So typically, there is a gradual decline in how you feel about accepting that counteroffer, and that can run over a few months. This is normally, you'll hear a lot of recruiters talk about in 6 months' time, people that accept counteroffers will be back in touch, because that's really when that downward slope on the roller coaster runs out and they're at the bottom again, and actually there is no up. They look and they go, oh, I'm just where I was before. And that's the other thing you need to think about is that counteroffer you've been made solving the core issue of why you were looking? If it was just money and they've offered you more money, then great, it has. Most people I speak to, though, have other reasons they want to look at other opportunities, or other reasons that they thought that other offer they got was really, really good. Does your counter solve those? Does it solve them within a reasonable time frame? How are you going to feel about that? Because in my personal experience, as I said, I did this once. I worked with a company and was looked to leave and was made a counter offer to stay, and it was a genuine, desire to move at that time, and I in reality stayed because I was offered more money. But I knew that company was going through a lot of change, a lot of restructure, and so actually I thought there could be some interesting opportunities here, but right now the money's lovely. The reality was I left in 8 months anyway, because the changes didn't happen, the organisation didn't move in a way that I wanted to go, and so the money didn't make a difference and I left. So personally for me, it was the right thing for about 4 months, and then I very quickly realised I was probably going to be looking again. The time at which that happened, there was a booming jobs market, recruitment, you could go and get a job fairly easily, so it didn't really affect me. Had that have been the case in a different market, I'd have had a real problem. And the way I felt about it was I felt like I'd taken the cash and maybe sold 8 months of my career up the river for that. And again, going back to something we talked about in the politics element of this video, that's what people were talking to me about. People were saying, well, you got a good deal there. Oh, you got a good deal. They never counteroffer people. I can't believe you got that deal. Because again, as I said in that politics element of the video, because it's a secret, everybody knows about it immediately. So everyone knows what you're up to and what's happened, or they think they do. They've made a guess. They've heard a rumor. And you've got to deal with how you feel about all of that. Everything else that we've touched on, the progression, the perception, the politics, personal, how do you feel about all of that? How are you going to feel about yourself? And how are you going to feel about the broader situation? Because if you were unhappy enough to look for another job, and then there's all these other things that are happening now you've stayed put, how does that change the way you feel about that job you're in? Often I find people, when you're employed by a business, you're in a bit of a bubble. You are, you wear the company t-shirt, you wear the company hat, you wear the company pants, you are part of that company, right? When you start looking outside at other businesses, outside the bubble, you start to realize things are different elsewhere. When you then come back in, you've got a different view on things. And so that personal feeling, that personal connection with the organization and the job does change, and you need to think about that. So going all the way back to the start of this video, I'm not telling you in 2025 that you shouldn't take counter offers. There are 100 videos on YouTube from the last 5 years with bad advice on don't take counter offers. You can take a counter offer if you want, if it suits you, if it's the right thing to do. But you do need to think about the things that will change. You cannot look at it with rose-tinted glasses and just say, this will all be fine, it's going to be exactly as it is now, but just better. It isn't. And a great deal of that is outside of your control. It's about how other people think about you because of the thing that you have done. That's it. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you're in the process of interviewing for jobs, you've got an offer, you're not sure what to do, you're thinking about, if I start looking, what would I do with a counter offer? Hopefully you can just think about these 4 things now in advance and get a sense of, well, what will I do if I'm counter offered? And do I mind about those things? Is James just wrong? Do I not care? Or actually, is that a good point? And it makes me think, yeah, a counter offer just wouldn't be for me. I'll do a future video where I talk about the process of working with an employer about a counter offer and managing that process to make sure that you do the least amount of damage as possible if you have no intention of accepting a counter. So make sure you like this video. Comment down below if you've got any experiences on counter offers, good or bad. Tell me I'm wrong, tell me I'm right, tell me about something you've experienced yourself. Subscribe to the channel as well for more ongoing careers advice, LinkedIn hints and tips as well, and great CX, customer experience related content. And I really appreciate you listening today, and I'll see you in the next video.